We're ready to begin disassembly of the movement. This is the Waltham size 12 Colonial B movement. And the first thing we need to do is we need to remove the hour wheel and the cannon pinion from the dial side of the movement, which is what we got now. Now the hour wheel should just lift right off. Now getting the cannon pinion off is going to be a little more work because it's held on by friction, so we're going to have to remove it. One way you can do that is with a cannon pinion puller, which I don't have, and the way that I'm going to do it is with a pen vise. And this was suggested in Henry Freed's book, Manual for Watch Repairers. He said that you slip the pen vise over the post on the cannon pinion and then kind of rotate and pull upward and it'll pop it off. And I've done this with other watches, so this works well. Alright, I've got the pen vise tightened down on the cannon pinion. You want to make sure you don't tighten it too tight because you could damage the cannon pinion, but it has to be tight enough that it'll grip it and pull it off. So we're going to give it a little bit of a twist and pull. And there it is, it's off. You can see the pen that it wrote on sticking down there. And in the jaws of the pen vise, you can see the little cannon pinion. So that was nice and easy. Next thing we're going to do is we need to put the movement into a movement holder. And I had to buy a bigger movement holder for this because the movement holder I had for wristwatches was too small to hold this large pocket watch movement. Now we're going to put it into the movement holder with the back side of the movement up so that we can get to all these parts that need to be removed, because right now there's nothing else that needs to be taken off the dial side except for the keyless works, and we'll get to that later. First things I want to do now are I want to remove the crown wheel, and I want to remove the ratchet wheel, and I want to remove the click and the click spring. So we'll go ahead and do those first. I've loosened the screws for the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel, and here's something really important to note with this movement. I just discovered this. On most watch movements, the crown wheel is held on with a screw that is a left-hand screw, meaning that you turn it clockwise to loosen it and counterclockwise to tighten it, which is the opposite of a normal screw. This one has a normal screw in it instead of a left-handed screw. I started turning it to the clockwise direction to loosen it like you normally would, and it just didn't want to budge. And you don't want to force one of these. If something won't move, don't force it, because it could mean that you're turning it the wrong direction and you can strip out the threads. So since it wouldn't move, I tried the other direction and it started loosening. So this is a very unusual design compared to other watches I've seen. So that's something to be aware of if you're repairing one of these. Go ahead and lift the screws out here. Now we can see if we can get the wheels out. There's our ratchet wheel. Here's our crown wheel. Now the click I still need to loosen. I haven't loosened the screw on that one yet. I may use a smaller screwdriver. Oh no, it's the same size. Click screw seems very long. It's taking a while to get unloosened. Oh, there we go. Now it's all the way out. I guess it's not a very long screw after all. Just took a while to unscrew. Okay, I'm going to remove the click off camera to make sure that I don't lose the spring in it, because it's too hard for me to see from this far away. Now here's something else unusual about this movement. Most movements have the click, and then they also have a separate spring that the click rides against to keep the tension on it. The click in this one does not have a separate spring. The click is built into the spring. Okay, here's the click, and you can see the spring that coils off the top of it. That's a really unusual design, but it's also very nice because it doesn't have a separate spring that can get lost or broken. The next thing we're going to take off is the barrel bridge, and I've already loosened the 3 screws for it. There's one here, and one over here, and they're not all the same length. This screw here is a lot longer than the 2 on the ends. The one in the middle is longer. One thing that's nice about working on this movement, because this movement is so large, I can unscrew a lot of the screws without having to look at them through a loop to get the screwdriver precisely aligned in them. It's really nice because the last watch that I worked on was a little Benrus wristwatch that belonged to my grandfather, and the movement on it is about the size of an American nickel. So it's tiny. Almost everything in it was almost microscopic. So this thing here is much easier to work on because this movement is almost 2 inches across. So let's go ahead and remove the screws. And then we will See if we can get the bridge to come off. I'm going to have to pop that up with a screwdriver, I think. There we go. And off it comes. This has a little metal plate screwed onto the barrel bridge that I've never seen on another watch before. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks like it's got oil or grease on it, so it must be something for lubricating the crown wheel. I'm going to have to take that off, I think, separately too, because that's going to need to come off before we clean the parts. It looks like our mainspring barrel that I was going to try to pull off can't be taken out yet because it's got a couple of the wheels from the drivetrain over the top of it, so I'm going to have to take off the train bridge next to get to that. And before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and take off that little screw and that oily disc that's on the barrel bridge. Get that taken off. I've removed the screw that holds this on. Let's see if we can get this little disc off and see what it is. There it is. I was first thought that it might be riveted on because there is a little what looks like a rivet in the middle of it. But it looks like it's not. So it has popped off. See what's under that there. It's just a bearing. So not sure what purpose that disc holds, but it's there, so we're going to need to save it. I've just made a really unfortunate discovery that may make it impossible to fix this movement unless I can find a donor movement. Around the jewel here that holds on the center wheel, there's 3 little screws. I was about to take those screws off because I thought that perhaps they held the jewel in place, and I discovered that the jewel is broken. It's not held in place like it should, and it's broken into 2 pieces, which I'm not sure if you can see there in the video, but there's part of it is there's the jewel, there's part of the jewel right there. So we're going to have to see if I can find a donor movement to get a part for that. I pulled out all the pieces of that broken jewel, and now the center wheel wobbles because it doesn't have the proper bearing there to hold it in place, see? And so, yeah, we're going to have to try to figure out a replacement for that. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble the rest of the train bridge and see what else is under there. I'm curious what those 3 screws around the center wheel bearing do, what they hold in place. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of it apart and see what's going on. I've taken out the 3 little screws around the center wheel bearing, and I've taken out the 3 screws that hold on the train bridge. The 3 screws are here, here, or here, and here. This is part of the train bridge as well. It's all one unit, even though there's a little dividing line there. So let's see if we can get this to lift off now. Oh yeah, there we go. Loosen the other end. You want to try to get both ends at once loosened up so that you don't bend any of the pivots on the wheels. And there we go. And here's our train wheels. Here's the center wheel. Third wheel. Fourth wheel. And the escape wheel is hidden under the balance, so I can't take it off yet until I get the balance out. Let's see if we can lift the mainspring barrel out. Oh, the barrel's not coming out, but the arbor has come out and the lid's come off, so I don't have to pop the lid off. Wonder what's going on with that. It wasn't snapped on there right before. I have a feeling that when I pop the top of this off, the spring is going to come out as well. Oh yeah, there comes the spring with it. Oh no, it's not. The barrel's still in there. There we go. There's our mainspring barrel with the spring still in it. And it's really greasy inside. I've got a new spring for this that I bought, so we don't need the old spring anymore. Go ahead and pull that out. Never seen one of these so reluctant to come out before. Usually they pop right out. This one must be really set in the barrel. Yeah, it's... Oh! That cut right through my finger glove. I hope that didn't cut my finger. Here's the spring, and this thing is really badly set, so that's why the watch was running so slow. It just didn't have any power to it because it was set into a coil. When that sprung out of there, it cut through my finger cover, and it did slightly cut my finger, but not deep enough that I'm bleeding. and that barrel went flying across the room about 10 feet from me. I found it on the floor and picked it up, and now it's all covered in cat hair, thanks to my kitty who leaves plenty of his hair on the floor. So I'm going to have to clean that off before I install a new spring in it. But yeah, wow. This is one of those old blue steel springs that were replaced by the modern unbreakable springs, because these sometimes would break in the watches, and especially if they get old and rusty. So we're going to replace this. The one I'm replacing it with is a modern unbreakable alloy spring that doesn't rust. Let's look at this train bridge tube, because I wanted to see what those 3 screws I took out were for. There's the underside of it. There doesn't seem to be anything that those screws were holding in place. I wonder if there was not supposed to be a cover, or, well, no, there wouldn't be a cover because the screws wouldn't go into that either. I don't know what those screws held in place. There doesn't seem to be anything underneath it that they would have held. So that's kind of a mystery. I'm not sure what that was all about. I'm going to have to get a donor movement to get a new jewel for that. So maybe that will solve the mystery once I get a jewel for it. Normally the next thing I would do would be to remove the balance cock and the balance, and then remove the rest of the escape wheel and the balance fork, or the pallet fork. I'm not going to mess with it anymore right now, because I need to find a replacement for that jewel for the center wheel, because without that the watch will never function correctly. And most likely what I'm going to do is probably just replace the entire train bridge, if I can find a good train bridge that has good jewels, because that will be easier than trying to pop a tiny little jewel into that hole. If I can find one, we will finish servicing the watch. If I can't find one, I think we're done with this one. So we'll come back to it and see what we're able to do once I go check out eBay and see if I can find an old donor movement. Well, I've checked eBay and I can't find a parts movement for this. There's a bunch of these movements available, but every single one of them has the same problem. They've all got either the jewel that I need is either broken or just outright missing from those movements. So I'm going to have to keep looking. But for right now, I'll go ahead and keep the parts under these little domes to protect them from getting too dirty. And we'll set them aside on the workbench, and I'll keep looking for parts. And once I find them, then we'll finish putting this back together. But for right now, we are finished with this one.